Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome once again to Stately Vaughn Manor, where Roger and I have returned. Because it's Wednesday. That means it's Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we'll talk about a certain comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. Steve Donoghue over on his channel will talk about the same comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. It is our world's finest team up that we do once a week. And this week, we're talking about something kind of strange. We're talking about this. Fantastic Four Unlimited. It was kind of limited as it turned out. It only lasted 12 issues. But it's a very strange series, which premiered with its number one issue in 1993, lasted 12 issues, written by the great Roy Thomas, who's written some of the greatest comic books ever, illustrated by Herb Trimpe. And like I said, very weird. I took these out of their bags and their boards. I haven't taken these out to read them since the 90s. I've read each one of these once, packed them away, and forgot about them. But recently I started to think about this series because I've been reading every issue of the regular series, Fantastic Four. I've been reading every issue from the first run of the Fantastic Four, which ran from 1961 until 1996. When the whole Heroes Reborn nonsense happened. And Fantastic Four was canceled and then brought back with the number one issue with a whole new creative team and a new universe and everything. So I've been reading every issue of the Fantastic Four, and I'm into the 90s now. I'm close to the end. And I recently read this Epic Collection. This is Fantastic Four Epic Collection number 23, Nobody Gets Out Alive, with stories from 1993 to 1994. This has the run written by Tom DeFalco and illustrated by Paul Ryan. And it's excellent. This is just an excellent series of Fantastic Four issues. I really liked this run of the Fantastic Four. Paul Ryan is an excellent artist. He's really, really good and underrated, I think. His stuff is excellent. And so I've been having a great time reading this run of the Fantastic Four. But reading it, I noticed something interesting. So, in reading all of these issues of the Fantastic Four, a lot of them I've been reading in Epic Collections. The Epic Collections haven't collected the entire original run of the Fantastic Four yet, but they've collected a lot of it. And one thing that Epic Collections, for the Fantastic Four at least, have been doing is they've been collecting in these volumes everything that was published having to do with the Fantastic Four. So, The Thing and the Hulk graphic novel was reprinted because The Thing is a member of the Fantastic Four. So that was reprinted in Epic Collections for the Fantastic Four. The Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange graphic novel was reprinted in a Fantastic Four Epic Collection. So was the Fantastic Four versus the X-Men miniseries that was collected. So pretty much everything having to do with the Fantastic Four has been collected in these Epic Collections along with the regular issues. Until we get to the 90s, when I couldn't help notice that Fantastic Four Unlimited was excluded. Even though these comics were printed alongside the issues that were reprinted in this volume, these were not reprinted in Epic Collections. If they had done that, they could have gotten a whole other Epic Collection out of the deal, but they didn't do it. These were left aside. These were forgotten about. And I think there's a reason for that. And I think the reason for that is Herb Trimpe's artwork, which is really, really weird. So Herb Trimpe is probably best known for the artwork that he did 20 years earlier in the 1970s. He did a run on the Hulk, which is very well remembered. People really, really liked Herb Trimpe's run on the Hulk. He was doing it in 1969, 70, 71, 72. So he worked on the Hulk for a while, and his Hulk is considered by many to be one of the best runs on the entire series. People love Herb Trimpe's Hulk. And you know what? That's because it was pretty good. Herb Trimpe was good on the Hulk. This is some cool stuff. So he's well remembered for this. He also was on G.I. Joe. He did some issues of G.I. Joe that are fondly remembered. My favorite Herb Trimpe thing is his run on Godzilla. He did Marvel's Godzilla series that they did in the 1970s. That was fun. But Herb Trimpe, as an artist, he's never been considered one of Marvel's best artists. He has his limitations. He's not great with anatomy, for example. And he's inconsistent. Some of the stuff he does is really good, and some of the stuff he does is not so good. And sometimes the stuff he does is terrible. He did an issue of Thor, which is probably the worst drawn issue of Thor I could think of. So, an inconsistent artist, but that still, this was unexpected because Fantastic Four Unlimited, his artwork in here is just bizarre. So it was the 90s, and in the 90s, there were a couple things going on. Marvel Comics, for one thing, was a mess in the 90s. Marvel Comics didn't know what to do with their characters. And so some of the comics that they were doing were good. A lot of them were pretty bad. Fantastic Four was doing really well, as creatively at least. Captain America was really good. But Thor kept getting worse in the 90s, and Avengers was just kind of lame. And Iron Man was absolutely terrible. Iron Man was just... When Iron Man ended for Heroes Reborn, that was like a mercy killing because it was so bad. And financially, Marvel was not doing well. They were heading into bankruptcy. They had their Image Comics disaster where some of their most popular artists left Marvel Comics and went to form Image Comics. And a lot of readers went with them. And so they were like, what do we do? And one of the things they did is change the style of a lot of the artwork in their books. You got a lot of Rob Liefeld clones. Liefeld has never been my favorite artist. In fact, I really, really don't like Rob Liefeld's work. But a lot of people did in the 1990s. And so you got a lot of Liefeld clones. And you got that very strange, excessive 1990s style in the artwork. And Herb Trimpe, one of the last people I would have expected to take up that style, did in Fantastic Four Unlimited. And you just got some very bizarre artwork. That's Johnny Storm, who's with the giant legs there. He took on an entirely new art style, very much modeled on Rob Liefeld's art style and the 1990s art style. Like, look at the Black Panther there with his giant legs, and it's just a little strange. It's a little strange. His artwork. Probably the one page everybody remembers from Fantastic Four Unlimited is probably this one, with the absolutely gigantic Reed Richards there, who just looks like a Macy's Day balloon. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. Mr. Fantastic does not look like this, but in this comic book he does. And he's got his gigantic 90s gun, and he got the gigantic muscles with the tiny ankles and tiny feet, and minuscule head perched there on top of his massive body. It's just ridiculous. You also have this strap, which is going nowhere. It just disappears. It's odd. And there's a lot of that in Fantastic Four Unlimited. Another bizarre thing is the way the faces were drawn. Herb Trimpe's faces were just strange. Everybody had these pinched faces and these mouths that are always open. It's weird. You got some really, really weird artwork going. I mean, look at these two. It's strange. It's strange. And so Fantastic Four Unlimited was very bizarre as far as the artwork was concerned. And I remember looking at it when I first picked up these issues and just thought, what the hell is going on? What is going on with Herb Trimpe? What on earth? And it's not just Fantastic Four that looks strange. I mean, we got the Inhumans in here. What is Black Bolt doing? I don't know what, but he probably could get arrested. I mean, it's just, this is some strange stuff. This is some strange stuff going on. Yeah, it's really weird, man. And I remember looking at a lot of this artwork and just being frankly confused about what was going on with Herb Trimpe. Now, my immediate, I mean, look at that. That's an evil version of Reed Richards, but he still looks ridiculous. And what's going on with these faces? I just, it's just weird, man. It's just weird. Look at these two. The Thing and Mr. Fantastic. Oh my goodness. So my first thought when looking at these issues when they came out was, oh my God, they're forcing Herb Trimpe to draw like Rob Liefeld. This is a travesty. But that's actually not what was happening. Herb Trimpe actually made the deliberate choice himself to change his art style to be more like the modern 90s style at the time. So this was a deliberate choice to change his art style to be more 90s. And here we have, obviously that is not drawn by Herb Trimpe, but we have his newer version of the Hulk going up against the Thing. Yeah, this is pure 1990s Herb Trimpe here. And this was something he did deliberately. Transforming his artwork to better resemble the artwork that was popular at the time in comic books. Not something that he was forced to do, something he decided to do. It was an artistic choice. And he was proud of it. He thought this stuff was great. To me, a lot of the artwork that you'll see in Fantastic Four Unlimited isn't just strange. I think it's objectively terrible, a lot of it. Personally, that's what I think. That's what I thought when I first saw it. And I still think so when I look at it today. But Herb Trimpe had a very different opinion. Herb Trimpe thought this was some of the best work he had ever done. He was proud of what he had done in Fantastic Four Unlimited. He thought it was great. Which is in itself an interesting thing. Sadly for Herb Trimpe, Marvel did cancel Fantastic Four Unlimited. And shortly after that, they just fired him. They stopped giving him work and then just said, you know what, you're no longer with Marvel Comics. They let him go. And after being with Marvel for decades, suddenly Herb Trimpe was unemployed and he was in his 50s. And so he was not in a good position. But you know what? He didn't let that get him down. He went back to school. He got a teaching credential and he became a teacher. He began a whole new career once he was let go from Marvel Comics, which is an admirable thing. And in fact, I kind of think, in a strange way, that what he did in these issues was kind of admirable. I mean, he decided on his own to completely change his art style, and he was happy with the results. Maybe nobody else was. It seems like, nobody else would be. I mean, good Lord, look at that. But he was happy with it. It was a weird comic book. This was written by Roy Thomas. I should probably talk a little bit about the stories themselves. The stories are not bad as stories, but they're a little odd. This was the companion magazine to the regular Fantastic Four series. and it had to follow along with whatever was going on in the regular series. And unfortunately for Fantastic Four Unlimited, there was a long period where Reed Richards was just missing, presumed dead. So they had to take Reed Richards out of the companion magazine. And so Roy Thomas had to kind of go along with everything that was going on with the regular series, and I think he probably had some difficulty with that. A lot of the plots and the stories feel like 1960s style stories to a point, but done in the 1990s. And the Fantastic Four don't always come off that well. You know, instead of being in control of things, they were just pretty much reacting to whatever was happening in the stories. It was, I don't think this is Roy Thomas at his best. But you know what? It's sort of hard to judge Roy Thomas's work just because you have to deal with Herb Trimpe's work. You know, you have to deal with the artwork, which is kind of a big ask. This was just very strange stuff. And it did not sell well. You know, it was canceled. And now Fantastic Four Unlimited is just a forgotten curiosity for the most part. These comics, you know, they were not reprinted in the Epic collections. I seriously doubt you will ever get a Fantastic Four Unlimited omnibus. It could happen, I suppose, but I highly doubt it. I don't know that any of this stuff has ever been reprinted before. It might have been, but I would be surprised. So it's just kind of a curiosity that you might find in the back issue bins, you know. But to Herb Trimpe, it was more than that. To Herb Trimpe, this was his artistic triumph. This, to Herb Trimpe, was his greatest work. As far as he was concerned, this was solid stuff, and he was proud of it. So in a way, it doesn't matter what I think of it. It maybe doesn't even matter what anybody thinks of it. It sort of matters, maybe, it matters what Herb Trimpe thought of it. And he thought a lot of it. Herb Trimpe thought this was his artistic triumph. And that's all I have to say about this. I will catch you next time.